Hi, my name is Justin. I'm one of the managers here at the Nashville City Club. I've been asked to do a basic wine 101 or an intro to wine. We're going to cover some things like what wine goes in what glass, how wine is made, what to order with what when you're out at dinner, and all those great and wonderful things. So let's go. All right, so let's talk about the wine glass. There are dozens of white and red glasses to drink from. We're going to go over just some basic ones. If you are drinking just to get a buzz and, it doesn't matter, then you can drink from rocks glass, plastic cup, hurricane glass, whatever, because that doesn't matter. But if you're trying to learn stuff about wine, understand aromatics, tannins, and flavors, then you will definitely need to get the correct glass. And we're going to go over that right now. So the first glasses, we're going to go over the white wine glasses. Obviously, tasting and evaluation of wines, it's very important to have the right glass. We always want to make sure the glass is clean, doesn't smell of chemicals, polished. We always polish with 2 rags. I've seen too many incidences where something happens, the glass breaks. So make sure clean glass. Then we're going to talk about the 2 types of wine glasses. Again, this is basic. There are a lot more wine glasses out there, but it's the 2 basic ones. This is the first example where the shape of the glass is really to preserve the floral aromas of the glass, of the wine rather. So really what it's doing is to maintain the cooler temperature of the wine, because you're grabbing it from the base like this, letting that wine stay at a cool temperature. And also you're pretty much making sure that the wine stays crisp, bright, and that it really has those, most of the wines that will go in here will have those stone fruit flavors, something crisp, okay? The next glass we're going to talk about is other white wine glass, is for the more full-bodied wines. You'll see it's bolder, bigger. This is to emphasize the creamy textures of the white wine, mostly for like wines like a Chardonnay or a Viognier. So big swirling to open up the texture of the wine. This is probably the best glass for something like Chardonnay or Viognier. All right, so the next couple glasses we're going to talk about are the red wine glasses. I have 2 with us right now, but there are quite a few. But we're going to talk about the 2 basic ones. They look like this. These would be more so for your Cabernets, and this would be for your Pinot. So the Cabernets, the deal with red wine glasses is that you also, with the red, you have to deal with more so the tannins and the bitterness, the spicy flavors, and how to get them out of the wine into the glass and into your nose, obviously. And so these glasses essentially are kind of elongated to deliver more like aromatics and less alcohol smell, ethanol smell to you. They're designed for more full-bodied wines like Merlot and Cabernet and Bordeaux blends. You could do, since these are the 2 glass we're talking about, Sangiovese, Malbec, all would go in here. This glass is more so for your Pinot Noirs, your lighter, delicate wines. This round bowl here kind of acts as like a aroma collector, if you will. So it kind of forces all those great smells and spices up into here. So you have your 2 glasses. In summary, you have this glass, which is for the Pinot Noirs. And then these are for your heavier wines, your Merlot, Cabernet, and your Bordeaux blends. All right, let's quickly talk about the storage of wine. All the hard work of the winemaker is lost completely if not stored properly. The kind of grape, the thought of the kind of grape, the soil composition, the vineyard location, climate control, all is gone if you don't store the wine properly. So just a couple things. If you're going to, drink the wine within a week or a month or something like that, it's totally okay to store the bottle up like this. But any long-term storage, you want to keep it on the side, like so, to make sure the cork stays moist. Also, for red wines, you try to want to keep, somewhere around 59 to 64 degrees, something up there. And obviously, white wine, you want to keep a little cooler at 50 degrees, somewhere around there. If the wines experience, frequent temperature changes, that also alters the wine. So try to keep it maintained. Exposure to light can change it, along with it can also damage the label here. And obviously, we want to make sure that we keep it away from direct sunlight. It will, once red wine starts to turn, red wine will turn brown and it'll lose its fruitiness, and it kind of has this weird cooked flavor. White wine, over time, if not taken care of properly, it kind of loses its, it kind of gets darker actually, and loses its aromatics and its bouquet of flavors. So obviously, all these people put in the work to make a good wine, and you don't want all that lost without, by not storing it properly and taking care of it. All right, quickly we're going to talk about soil and how important it is to the wines and winemaking. I promise it's going to be quick, not boring, don't worry. The composition of the soil obviously is very important to the wine and how it's grown. Certain grapes like certain soils, like Chardonnay, like chalky and limestone soil, whereas Merlot grows better in clay, Cabernet and like gravelly soil, and agriculturally poor soils actually kind of make for a better wine. What happens is the grapevines, their roots dig deeper and deeper and deeper into the soil, searching for nutrients and minerals. And what happens is that the deeper they go and the deeper they dig into the soil, it actually helps them get less affected by the heat or a freeze or some other kind of natural issue. And I kind of think that's more of like a metaphor for life. Like the harder you dig in, more solid your base is, it's a lot easier to weather all of life's storms. And I think that's very appropriate for today's day and age. So that's really the only reason I bring it up. So dig in there. All right, next we're going to talk about the making of the wine. Harvest season usually runs August till October. Sweeter wines are usually picked later in the year. These wines are purposely left on the vine during cool or nearly frozen temperatures. What happens is the grapes shrink and the sugars concentrate, making a sweeter wine. Unlike avocados and bananas, grapes actually don't ripen when you pick them. They have to be picked at the right moment. Some grapes are picked slightly less ripe to produce wines with a higher acidity, usually white wines or sparkling wines. Some grapes are picked slightly more ripe to produce higher sweetness concentration, much like the wines we were just talking about, dessert wines. The first step is in the winemaking process is to gather the grapes, and they are sorted and squeezed. The red wine grapes with thinner skins and soft tannins, such as a Pinot Noir, are often fermented with their stems, and that's to add more tannins to the wine. And then obviously thicker skin grapes are destemmed to reduce the bitterness and the harsh tannins. White wine grapes are not fermented with their skins or seeds attached. Most wines, white wine grapes go directly into the wine press, and they get squeezed from there. Once they squeeze the wine, they go into fermentation vessels. There are 3 different types of fermentation vessels. There are wood, stainless steel, and concrete. Each winemaker has their own way they make the wine and which vessel they use. All right, so the next step is the probably most important, which is adding of the yeast. The yeast consumes the sugar and the grape must, and then out comes the alcohol, or ethanol. Red wines ferment at a little bit hotter temperature than whites. Reds tend to ferment at 80 to 90 degrees, whereas whites more so at 50 degrees. That's because they're trying to, preserve the delicate, floral and fruit aromas of the white wine. So while the wine is fermentating, the carbon dioxide is released, which causes the grape seeds and the skins to rise to the tank. Some winemakers control this by punching down the cap multiple times during the day. The next step is, once the fermentation is done, it's time to rack the wine and get it out of the fermentation vessel. So when the first juice that comes out of the wine or the vessel is called free run, which is considered probably the most high quality of the wine. The second that comes out, it would be the press wine, and it's more rustic, harsher tasting wine. They do is they tend to get a good blend together, whatever they decide the combination might be, and those the wine goes into barrels, bottles, or storage tanks. Some of these wines will wait 5 years before they're released, and then some others just a couple weeks. During this time where they're in the barrels, bottles, and storage tanks, they're racked, tested, tasted, and stirred, and often blended back in together to create the final wine. All right, so quickly we're going to talk about some wine varietals, some very popular ones that you can find everywhere. We're going to talk about 9 white and 9 red. You should be listening to things that you have typically liked in the past, some typical flavor profiles. And we are going to start with the red, and this is going to be in order of lightest to darkest. The first is the Pinot Noir grape. Pinot Noir will help you kind of understand the acidity and the aromatics of red wine. Definitely one of my favorites. Grenache is next. It will kind of tell you how wines can be both light and fruit forward at the same time. And then next we're going to talk about Merlot. Merlot is kind of unique. It can be both light or bold depending on where it's made and how it's made. Usually fruit forward with a lot of soft tannins in there. Next, the Sangiovese grape. Aromatic like the Pinot Noir, bigger tannins, and pretty cherry fruit driven. The Nebbiolo grape is high in tannins, high in acid, light in color, which not a lot of wines are, so it's very unique. Tempranillo, also one of my favorites, is earthy with a lot of tobacco and high tannins. Next is everyone's, well, a lot of people's favorite, is the Cabernet. It's probably one of the most balanced, full-bodied wines in the world. It has a great long finish and definitely one of my favorites. Syrah is kind of a big, bold, dark fruit flavors with a subtle finish and soft, light tannins. Blackberry and tobacco are also kind of flavors in there as well. Malbec, it's kind of similar to Grenache, but instead of like strawberry and cherry flavors, it's more of like a blueberry, blackberry flavor profile. And that brings us to the end of the red wine. All right, so the next we're going to talk about the 9 most popular white varietals and a basic profile for them. This is going to go from lightest to the richest. And so the first one we're going to start off is Pinot Grigio. Pinot Grigios are typically light, zesty, high acid white wines. Second on our list is Riesling. Those usually run dry to sweet, kind of smell like lime, honey, apricots, with a great high acidity. The third one is Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blancs are usually green and herbaceous. The fourth one on our list is Chenin Blanc. They're really zesty white wines, lots of like floral notes and lemon flavors. Moscato, sweet wines that kind of have an orange and peach blossom flavor to them. Gewürztraminer, off-dry, too sweet white wines that have kind of, a flavor of ginger and honey to them. Semillon grapes are dry, medium-bodied white wines with like brief lemon notes. Viognier is a medium-bodied white wine. Kind of smells, it has great floral notes to it. Chardonnay is obviously the big boy. This is a full-bodied, dry white wine, and probably one of the most popular whites in the world. All right, we're back. Yes, this is a new day. So the answer to your question is yes. It did take me an entire day to come up with and put together 17 minutes and 43 seconds of content that you've already seen. But it's my first video, so yeah, what are you gonna do? Briefly, we're going to talk about wine being corked. Essentially what that term means is that the wine, when you open it, kind of smells like an old musty basement. Most of the time it means that it's oxidized. And yes, screw tops can also be oxidized. Pretty much what that means is that the wine has been harmfully exposed to oxygen. So the moment you open up that cork or screw that cap off, oxygen comes in contact with the wine, that means that the wine's starting to be broken down. And over time, if it's exposed, it turns into that smell of the old musty basement. So that is what a corked wine smells like. All right, we are going to talk about the analysis of wine. It comes in 4 parts typically: viewing the wine, smelling the wine, tasting the wine, then forming an opinion. So the first part we're going to talk about is viewing the wine. So wine can basically be, red, white, or rosé. Whatever the color it must be, it has to be clear. If it's kind of cloudy and it looks like it's been shaken up, just let it sit out for 24 hours. And then if it's still cloudy, it's bad. You got to throw it away. If you see sediment in your bottles, that's due to tannins or tartrate crystals. Tannins are a naturally occurring substance in the grapes and other fruits that, like plants and tea. Tannins are described as like a bitter, causing a dry or puckery feeling in the mouth. Tannins end up in your wine when a vintner allows the skins of the grape to sit in with the fermentation process. This is how the wines get their color. Wines that have little or no contact end up being white or slightly pink and have far few tannins. Wines that ferment with the skins longer on there have a higher tannin content. So you'd imagine that red-skinned grapes have more tannins than the white-skinned grapes. Also, what's also could be happening in your bottle, if you open it up and you see these little white crystals in there, those are tartrate crystals. It's not glass or like sugar or something in there. It actually means it's a higher quality. Most of the time, it means it's a higher quality wine. This is a higher harmless byproduct of the wine. Wine is sometimes permanently exposed or purposely exposed to cold temperatures. This is called the cold stabilization process. It's an effort to remove byproducts from the wine. When this happens, natural tartaric acid in the grapes binds with potassium, and at the low temperatures, it actually forms crystals. So if you do see those in your bottle, an easy way to get rid of the sediment is to run the wine through a cheesecloth or a coffee filter if that really bothers you. All right. So we're going to talk about the how to describe the taste of wine. There are a few different key descriptors when talking about wine. The first would be sweetness. I feel like this doesn't need a lot of explanation. It's the opposite of dry. Wine can be described as medium dry, off dry, that kind of stuff. Acidity, we've talked a lot about. Acidity is a big deal for white wines. It makes them refreshing and crisp. The lower acidity white wines tend to be more fat or flabby, as they say. We've talked about tannins. Really, it's all about tannins for red wine. High tannin wines are astringent, maybe even a little bitter or inky. Lower tannin wines are smooth, soft, and more drinkable depending on your taste. The body of the wine or the perceived weight of it, the viscosity, full-bodied wine tastes and feels more thick, coating the sides of the glass when you're swirling it. A light-bodied wine is almost like water when you're spinning it, and a medium body is kind of in between. The best way for you to wrap your taste buds around the primary food descriptors is to make yourself a cup of tea. When you do, and you take a sip of your plain tea, those are tannins that you taste, that dry, puckery kind of flavor. Once you add a slice of lemon to it, that adds a nice little acidity to it. And then the combination of those two are kind of astringent. Also, if you want to take something sweet, some sugar, and put it in there, this kind of mellows everything out and kind of makes it taste soft. So you have all those descriptors right in your cup of tea. Next, flavors. If you're not sure, don't bother using descriptors like graphite or barnyard or other flavors you've hopefully never tried. Try to stick to the most relatable flavors like fruit, earth, spice, smoky, or flowery. The best way to kind of give yourself a parameter here is to go to the wine shop and tell them to give you two contrasting bottles of wine. Say, give me something fruity, and then also give me something earthy. And that's the best way for you to figure out the difference between the two. And in the wine world also, you'll hear things like oak or oakiness. The oak flavor comes from when it's being fermented in oak barrels. If you're a whiskey drinker, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And some of the oak, when it's barreled in oak, those kind of qualities bring out a smokiness, a clove, spiciness, and vanilla tones. So that's where you get those kind of sub flavors off of. So that's a great way for you to figure out the difference of the flavors is going to try contrasting bottles by yourself or with a friend. Lastly, we're going to talk about food and wine pairings. Right off the top, I would just want to say that you should drink what you want to drink. And if you want to drink a Pinot Noir with a big buttery lobster, you do so because that's what you want, and that's the most important thing. These are just little tips, if you will, to help you and guide you next time you're at the restaurant or you're here at the club and you want to try something new. So here they are. Here's just a few of them. Old world dishes should go with old world wine. For example, if you're going to make a nice bouillabaisse, French bouillabaisse, I would probably do a nice little Sancerre wine or Sauvignon Blanc. Just try to keep those together, like if it grows together, it goes together kind of thing. Next, the wine should always be more acidic than the food. Wine should always have the same flavor intensity as the food. Red wines, these are just general rules. Red wines are best paired with flavored meats like red meat. White wines and lighter intensity meats like fish or chicken are best with white wines. And more often than not, you can never go wrong with a sparkling rosé or sparkling wine. Can never miss, in my opinion. Next, we're going to talk about the kind of pairing methods you can use. You can use complementary pairing or congruent pairing. We're going to, first you have to identify the basic taste components of your dish. We can use macaroni and cheese as a basic example. So for complementary pairing, a white wine with high acidity would probably complement the fat in the macaroni. So, for example, a traditional mac and cheese recipe with a creamy bechamel sauce would probably be best with a zesty Pinot Grigio. Now, if we were to use that example as a congruent pairing, a white wine with all the creaminess will add creaminess to the dish. For example, a traditional mac and cheese with a creamy bechamel sauce could also be paired with a Viognier or a Chardonnay, and that would be a congruent pairing. And very lastly, these are some quick tips for wine pairing if you are at the City Club here or any other restaurant. These are just my suggestions, something for you to remember. Any kind of earthy dish that has truffles, mushrooms, are really pair well with Pinot Noirs or Dolcetto. Chardonnays pair well, Chardonnays from California, Chile, or Australia really pair well with any kind of fish like salmon or any kind of creamy seafood in a rich sauce. Sparkling white wines, such as a champagne or a Spanish cava, because of their touch of sweetness in there, pair well with salty foods. California Cab, Bordeaux style blends are terrific with steaks, lamb chops, herbs, that kind of thing. Scallops with a like a citrus salad or something like that, probably best with a Sauvignon Blanc, a Vino Verde, or a Verdejo from Spain. I usually do Pinot Grigio with any kind of seafood. Malbecs, suggestion probably be any kind of barbecue. Syrah with any kind of super spiced dishes, and Moscato d'Asti with your desserts. Is always a great way to finish your meal. Well, we've come to the end of the video. I hope you learned a lot, or maybe just a little. We have a lot of great wine-related promotions going on here at the club. We have our Uncorked Wine program where you get a glass of wine every time that you come here to the club. You can also get a bottle of wine with the purchase of an entree. We have wine lockers on site that you can store all your favorites. That way we can open them up for you for lunch, for dinner, or heck, even maybe breakfast. We also have our wine dinners quarterly that are always well received, always a great time. We have our champagne event at the end of the year, just a lot going on. I hope that you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it, and cheers. I hope to see you soon here at the club.